Okay, welcome, Dr. Miaken of Monarch Family Chiropractic, and we are talking about the importance of your microbiome today. And if you look at the last 20, 25 years, the microbiome, let's see if let's go to my next slide here. Going back to Socrates, he said, I mean, this is like hundreds of years ago, all diseases begin in the gut. And little did we know how right he was, because in the last 25 years, I think in 1999, there was a book written called The Second Brain. And the second brain is talking about the gut, your gastrointestinal system, your microbiome, and how the second brain or your gastrointestinal system is massively important for your brain health, but also your body health. And so let's go into why that is. So your microbiome, it's basically the diverse and unique makeup of microorganisms that make up you. Okay. So I'm going to say that again. Your microbiome is the diverse and unique makeup of microorganisms that make up you. Now, how many of you can say this if you're in your living room at home, or you can say it here. When it comes to bacteria or bugs or microorganisms, do you think those are bad or good?
Yes.
Both. Okay, so I hear both, and you can say it in the chat. I hear some are bad, some are good. I think the average person, if they don't really know much or understand much about the body, they will probably say bugs, bacteria, those are bad. I don't want those. Give me the, hand sanitizer. Give me the bleach. Give me all the things, because I don't want any bugs. I wish you said good. Love that. And when we are thinking that microorganisms or bugs are bad, that can create a lot of problems and challenge in our body, as you'll find out today. Because really a small percentage of bugs are actually the bad bugs. And what we get more concerned about is the balance of your microorganisms, right? Do you have enough healthy bugs with, the bad that create a nice flora or balance of microorganisms? If you have less good stuff and you have more of the bugs that will create more stress, then you have a different type of biosis. Okay, so your microbiome, it is critical for more than just digesting your food. It is to control the entire body. It's a control center for your entire body. There's a book on it, it's called The Second Brain, but it basically talks about how the gastrointestinal system has a role in modulating your mood and thinking. Wow. So the bugs in your gut, the stuff that is helping you absorb your nutrients into your body, impacts your mood and how you think. So your microbiome is linked to manufacturing vitamins, regulating your metabolism and blood sugar, and it influences genetic expression and brain chemistry. So I've got a couple books in here. This is called The Autoimmune Fix, where we've got You Can Fix Your Brain, okay, by Dr. Tom O'Brien, or we've got Wheat Belly. All of these talk about the microbiome. This is where I took most of the data tonight. And in You Can Fix Your Brain, Dr. Tom O'Brien says, if you don't fix your gut, you're never going to fix your brain. That's how important it is. So for every message the brain sends to the gut sends 9 messages back to the brain. So there's actually more information that the brain is receiving from the gut than when the brain actually sends. So it's controlling our brain's responses to stress, our brain hormone production, the activation of our brain's immune system, the growth of new brain cells, and adaptability for those new brain cells to learn. It has a massive impact on our brain. So again, it's the diverse and unique makeup of microorganisms that make up you. So what that means is, as we're all sitting here in this conversation, we each have our own makeup of microorganisms that make us uniquely me, okay? Which I find fascinating. You talk to some of the experts and they say, you are more of the makeup of your microorganisms and the bugs in your body than you think you are, right? But this microbiome acts as a barrier, so it prevents entry of harmful substances into the bloodstream. You know, those are bacteria, fungi, whatever we may be exposed to that we're taking in. So I want you to think about it like a cheesecloth, and it only allows for small molecules to pass. And it's a very selective filter, so it'll help with distribution of nutrients and other beneficial substances from our intestines to the rest of our body. And it acts as a relay switch for the messages coming from the good bacteria in your gut to the rest of your body. Okay, so it's really important. The imbalance within our microbiome can wreak havoc on our health. Okay, so if we don't have a good balanced system, it's called dysbiosis. It will impact our immune system because 70% of our immune system resides in the gut. It's the primary offender, or primary for offending invaders that set off the autoimmune response in the imbalance of bacteria that live within us. It increases our risk for heart disease, cancer, stroke, Alzheimer's, and diabetes. And it can lead to depression, anxiety, memory loss, brain fog, and mood swings. So if you have brain fog, or if you have anxiety or depression, that is an indicator that you have an unhealthy microbiome. Okay? Something to really think about. Got to dive deeper into what's happening with your body and how are you supporting your body in a healthy way that show the output, right? So what harms our microbiome? The use of antibiotics. Dr. Tom O'Brien in his book said, when you take an antibiotic, you are dropping a bomb on your microbiome. It damages and destroys everything in its path, including good and bad bacteria. And again, if 70% of our immune system is located within our gut and we're taking any type of antibiotic, short-term or long-term, that is certainly going to have an impact on how well we can respond to infections moving forward, right? So it says, if the last 3 to 4 decades of antibiotic use has resulted in a systemic or systematic depletion of good bacteria from our intestines, how might this impact our protection from colds, flus, viruses, cancer cells, and more? Right? So what have we done to support a healthy gut? Right? Or what have we not done? And in his book, I'll just share this with you. This is a meta-analysis of 4,373 papers. Researchers concluded that individuals prescribed an antibiotic for a respiratory urinary infection develop bacterial resistance to that antibiotic. The effect is greatest in the month immediately after treatment, but may persist for up to 12 months. So what that means is if you're experiencing recurring ear, sinus, or lung infection, it may be caused by the fact that your body no longer responds to the medication you're prescribing. Right? Antibiotics definitely have their place. There's no question. But antibiotics are meant for bacterial infections. So if we are ever given an antibiotic for a fungal infection or given an antibiotic for a viral infection, that is in fact not doing its job and creating massively larger problems within our bodies and it's counterproductive to helping our immune system do its job. So that's where there are times when we need antibiotics. And we have to look at what's the effect of this antibiotic on my system and how can I counteract that effect? So a lot of times you'll hear, I actually am hearing more MDs make recommendations to take a probiotic when they put their patients on an antibiotic. But I think a probiotic is a healthy microorganism that can help as it passes through the digestive tract. It can help create an environment for your good bacteria to thrive. Okay, a probiotic is not meant to seed your bacteria. It's meant to create an environment for those good bacteria to thrive. Okay, then you hear about a prebiotic, and prebiotic is nutrition for the probiotic. So you want those to thrive within your system. So a lot of times a recommendation when you're given an antibiotic is take a probiotic, but you want to stagger it. And you're not going to take the antibiotic at the same time that you're taking the probiotic. So you take your antibiotic, and then a couple hours later, you're going to take your probiotic. And you're going to take a pretty high dosing of a probiotic. You're going to want to do one that has a wide spectrum sometimes, and there's some great research around specific probiotic strains or bacterial strains. As an example, there's one that Dr. Kristen and I recommend for any kiddo. It's called B. infantis. We know that if kiddos have B. infantis, it's a specific bug strain, microorganism strain. If they have B. infantis within their gut microbiome, that they're less likely to develop issues later on in life at like 5, 6 years old. Those are behavioral issues. Those are autoimmune type issues. And so Dr. Kristen and I, especially if you have a C-section delivery, because one of the ways that our microbiome is seeded is through passing through the vaginal canal. Kiddo does something called gulping. So they got their mouth open and they're taking in mom's good microbiome flora. And that is what is creates and helps seeds that little baby's microbiome. If we have kiddos born through C-sections, they're bypassing that entire process. And so they are not getting that good flora. So for these kiddos, it is vital that they get something to support seeding their gut and a healthy gut, right? So this starts this starts before birth, but certainly we can do things, once you come earthside, or if you're well into your 2-3 decades earthside, right? And so there are some very specific bacterial strains or bug strains that you can use. They've done a lot of research for different conditions. But oftentimes a whole spectrum probiotic is going to be a good option, and something that's going to be a high dosing. If you go into natural grocer or Whole Foods, you'll oftentimes see something that's 10 billion, 20 billion. They can go all the way up to 100 to 150 billion. So when you're taking an antibiotic, you're going to want to get one of those higher. You're going to want to do the powerhouse. And I would do 100, 250 if you have the budget for that and you have access to that. And you're going to take it through your antibiotic, window, but then continue it. And there's other ways you can support that. So how your nervous system, the other way your microbiome can be harmed is through stress and how you're responding to stress. And so we look at, and this is where chiropractors are rock stars, right? We are supporting how your nervous system responds to stress, whether it's physical, chemical, or emotional. And again, you have to look at if you're under chronic stress, or if, as an example, if work is the main stressor in your life and you need to go to work, but you can't change that scenario. So you're putting yourself into that stress state, but it's not necessarily changing. You've got to look at, okay, what are the things that are going to help build up my resilience and support my health and well-being, understanding I'm going into this toxic workplace, right? That's just an example. And you can have moments, as a side note, you can have, life changes that happen in terms of stress to your nervous system, right? A massive move or a family member passing, a family member given a concerning diagnosis, losing your job, right? There's life scenarios that happen that cause massive nervous system stress that can impact and harm our microbiome. By and large, what is going to be most impactful to our microbiome whether it's a healthy, balanced microbiome or not, is the foods that we eat. Let me see if I can find it. I had this saved in a book. I thought it was a good. Well, anyway, let's see. So I can't quite find the spot where it talks about going into our foods, but our standard American diet is not one that lends for a healthy microbiome. So Dr. Tom O'Brien says, the biggest thing that you can do to support a healthy microbiome is the foods that you eat, how you feed yourself. So I said dysbiosis is the imbalance of microbiome, right? So the big culprits, and we look at the standard American diet, is processed foods, right? Processed foods are not natural foods. There's a lot of chemicals, preservatives, the list goes on and on and on. And there's this whole book called Wheat Belly. All he talks about is wheat. There is a protein called gluten that is a part of wheat. And here's the problem: when you have dysbiosis and you have your cheesecloth, think about your digestive system like a cheesecloth, okay? And you don't have good protection of your good gut bacteria to protect that lining, and you start to have tears in your lining. So let's even back up. So when you eat a food, okay, your digestive system starts with chewing and saliva. Okay, I actually read somewhere that it's better to drink your food than eat your food, meaning you need to chew your food 20 to 30 times to allow your saliva to do its job to start breaking down its food. Okay, so first it starts with chewing, and then it comes into your stomach, and your stomach should be at a pH around 2.5. And that's important because it continues to break down the proteins to pass down lower into your digestive tract. Okay, so think about the food you're consuming. Let's say it's a pearl necklace, right? And as you're chewing it, you're starting to break up those pearls. So let's say you've got a pearl that's, 4 pearls long and 3 pearls long. As you're going through this process, it goes into the stomach and it's continuing to break up those pearls. When it's 1 pearl, that's easily absorbed through your digestive system. Okay. The problem is if you have these groups of pearls, like these 2-strand, 3-strand, and 4 strands that are reaching into the lower digestive system, and by this time, if you have dysbiosis, you've actually got tears within your digestive tract into that cheesecloth. And so instead of 1 pearl being absorbed through, you're getting strands of 2 or 3 or 4. And you're getting these very large molecules entering the bloodstream that your body does not recognize. And that is gluten. And you've got, your barrier, your digestive tract barrier, but you've got your blood-brain barrier, right? So that's where if these big molecules that are not broken down easily by your body get through the digestive system, then it's getting potentially through your blood-brain barrier. That's where you have impacts into the brain. So if you have a healthy microbiome, would you do well with gluten? I would hope so. After reading some of this Wheat Belly here, there's a conversation in here that he says, your grandmother's muffin is not your muffin, meaning the wheat that we consume today is highly processed, and it's very different than the wheat that our ancestors consumed. And when you look at, what we consumed as we evolved, when we were eating and consuming wheats and grains, it's a much shorter time frame than when you look at, the nuts and gathering of nuts and, eating meat. Our systems had thousands of years to adjust and adapt to that consumption of food. We have much shorter time to adapt to the consumption of wheat. And so that's why we see a lot more people have wheat, I guess, or gluten allergies. And again, the wheat that we consumed ancestors is very different than the wheat we consume now. Sugar is a processed food. Corn can be highly inflammatory. Dairy can be highly inflammatory. And so where you really get into understanding if one or a lot of these are inflammatory to you and inflammatory your microbiome, that's where you start to have to, you use a food journal and start cutting some of these out. And it takes time, but well worth it. If you're getting yourself off a trajectory of Alzheimer's, right? As an example, or if you're, leading a life of anxiety and depression, that's where it can be really challenging to make some of these choices, and it's good to have an accountability buddy. And that's where getting chiropractic care can help clear up some of these things so you can start making those bigger choices, right? Okay. So what else? Supporting a healthy microbiome. Choose colorful, high fiber fruits and vegetables. Polyphenols are micronutrients found in brightly colored fruits and vegetables that have incredibly beneficial effects to our microbiome. So that means you're eating Doritos, those bright orange Doritos, or those bright green ones, those natural ones that they grow in like the organic fields out here and across the plains of the US. Oh no, there's no Dorito fields. Huh. Yeah, those are not the highly colorful foods we're talking about, right? But when you see those, you really have to, like Skittles. In what, place are those a natural product that you can just pick from the ground, right? So we have to start looking at our food like, is this food? Choose the right carbohydrates. And again, this is where it is really difficult to consume unprocessed foods. I mean, everything is, if it's in a package, snacking, you think, okay, I'm going to snack. I want a cracker, processed. I want a chip, processed. Oh, I feel like some pasta, processed, right? I mean, it takes a lot of work. French fries, cookies, desserts. I mean, it is just everywhere. And so it really takes a lot of work. And I'm just going to tell you, if you have brain fog, if you are having trouble thinking, I would go to your diet. Because if you're eating highly processed foods and then you've got gluten after gluten after gluten at every meal, oh yeah, I'm starting off with toast or French toast for breakfast, and I like to have a sandwich for lunch, and then I do my pasta for dinner. It's just inflammatory, 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 inflammatory. And at some point, your system's going to give. So I'm not saying cut it out. I'm saying you need to be more intentional. And if you're, if you can lessen the cumulative effect of having processed foods and sugar, the better off you're going to be. Grass-fed meats and healthy fats and fermented foods. So that means fermented foods is grown with some good bacteria attached to it or within it. So it's kimchi, sauerkraut, kefir, pickles, kombucha, tempeh, miso, apple cider vinegar, yogurt. Those are a great way to get a probiotic. And I've even seen like a fork full of, say, a sauerkraut can have 1 trillion different probiotic within that, sauerkraut. So I've also worked with a functional med doc, and he said, you should rotate what you're exposing. You should be eating fermented food on the regular. And you should rotate those so you're constantly exposing yourself to different fermented foods, different bacteria. He lived in North Carolina. He said, I was out in California surfing and I was drinking some ocean water because I wanted exposure to a different microbiome. So he was all about how can I expose myself to different bugs and bacteria to create a more diverse meat. And I would say, secondly, you know, outside of addressing your diet is how can you address your stress? Chiropractic is one of the fastest ways and the most direct ways to address brain stress. Everyone should be getting checked. Everyone should be getting adjusted, period. Everyone should be hearing these conversations and engaging in these conversations. So that's why we do spinal workshops. We know that if you are tuning into these workshops, you are responding 30 to 70% differently and more so in the beneficial way than somebody who is not hearing this. Why? There's never been a time that we have been exposed to more information and more data at the touch of the fingertips. Are we having an information, is it an information desert out there? No, it's an overload. So it's how can we sift through and continue to make the most right choices for our health? And that's why Dr. Chris and I love doing workshops, because every time I sit down and do this, I think, oh yeah, this is why I'm doing this. I'm choosing this for myself, choosing this for my family, so that we are in a different place, not the standard American life 20 years from now. Right? We all want to live vitalistic, thriving, connected lives together in community, with our families. We want that. But you talk to our 60, 70, 80-year-olds out there who are living the standard American lifestyle, that's not what it is. We got to make different choices. We got to be proactive now. We have to be choosing the things that are hard. It's hard to say, yes, I want to show up and get adjusted 3 times a week for 12 weeks and then 2 times a week for the rest of the year. And you're telling me I'm not done after that. I have to keep going. I have to continue working on taking care of my brain and spine. Yes. If you want something different. And I tell you what, we have some people in our office in their 70s and 80s who are experiencing a very vitalistic life that looks very different than the people who are in the standard American lifestyle. But they're working hard to maintain health. And I will tell you, being healthy is hard work. Being sick is a full-time job. So that is what you are doing right now with us. You are investing in your health. You're showing up for you, and you're putting yourself and your family in a different trajectory so that life can be different. And that's where I'll end, is who can you share what you know about chiropractic and your experience at Monarch? Who can you share that with? We have a mission here, but we cannot do it alone. This is not Dr. Kristen and my practice. This is our practice. This is your practice. And when you show up here and when you share, you are changing the health of your community. We can't do this by ourselves. We need help. We need more people desiring what you have. And they're out there. They just don't know it. So that's my ask of you. And if you know that person, you can type them in the chat, because we'd love to put some good energy towards that. You can share it with us when you're in the office next. But ultimately, I would love for you to share what you got out of this when you're in the practice. I didn't click on a video. PBS did an awesome video on your microbiome and talking about the uniqueness of it and how important it is. I'm going to link it to the comments below, or the descriptor below. It's I think a short 5-minute video, well worth watching. So I'll make sure I link that below. But thank you for being here. We love and appreciate you. You guys are rock stars. You guys are showing up for you, and we are so pumped that you're here with us. So we'll see you when you're in the office. And thank you, Dr. Miaken Ziegler of Monarch Family Chiropractic. And I'll stop my recording here.